Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Juan. I'm just one reader, and today I'm reviewing 10th of December. This is a collection of short stories published in 2013 by Random House by George Saunders. George Saunders is one of the most important American authors, particularly in terms of short stories. And this is my first encounter with George Saunders. This was published in 2013 and it was proclaimed as one of the biggest books of that year. It was finalist for the National Book Award, and according to the New York Times Book Review, it was one of the 10 best books of the year. I originally decided to pick this one up because this year I read Kelly Link's collection Magic for Beginners and loved it. And I also read the novel Swamplandia by Karen Russell and loved it even more. And I read somewhere that both Karen Russell and Kelly Link regard George Saunders as one of the big influences in both of their writings. So I decided to check out this very mysterious author. Mysterious to me, I mean. Now, I very rarely read short stories, and honestly, that's a big mistake. I honestly don't know why I don't read more short stories because I'm coming out of the short story closet right now. I love a good short story collection, and I think that the few short story collections that I've read and loved, I have loved even more than I would love a novel. So, what I'm saying is that it's crazy that I don't read as many short stories as I do novels, considering that I think that for me at least, short stories have more potential. And if I love a short story collection, I can love it even more than I can love a novel. And I think that's because of the format. I think it's much more difficult in I don't know. This is just my opinion. I think it's even more difficult to write a perfect short story than it is to write a very good novel because of the format, because of the limitations of space and time and text. And I think that a good novel can give you many things, but if a great short story just ticks all the right boxes for you, it's something else. It's very hard for me to describe it, but at least that's the experience that I've had with short stories. When they're good, I love them. And yeah, this collection definitely falls under that level of experience enjoyment. So, 10th of December is a collection by George Saunders that features some themes, some consistent themes throughout the entire piece. This collection is talking mostly about American class and some dynamics in families, particularly dysfunctional families. It also captures the mentality of all the characters in the different short stories excellently. And what I enjoyed the most, without a single question, about this collection overall was the writing. George Saunders is a minimalist. That means that he takes this idea, this very simple details, and then he develops them and takes them further by asking himself questions. So that's how he builds up his stories, and then he builds up a very long story. And once it's finished, according to himself, because I've seen him do a lot of interviews, this is what he says. He starts clipping and he starts editing out and cutting pretty much everything that he can. And so the final result, the final product that we get in the collection is a miraculous thing. It's a very condensed version of the story, and that's something that I really appreciated, because the stories themselves were fantastic, but to have this element of the use of language and the amazing genius way that he uses the format to convey the meaning of that story and those characters, that is just fantastic. That is something else, because I've never read anything like that. I've never read anything that comes close to this level of condensation and capturing so much in so little. So if you enjoy writing that you can enjoy at a surface level. You can read it and you can enjoy it. The stories here are very interesting, fast paced, enjoyable, very funny, very tragic as well. But it, but there's something in all of the stories that you can expand upon, you can think more about, you can dig deeper, and you can really analyze a lot of things in the short stories. There's just so much hidden in there. There's this, it's like a hidden treasure. So that's something that I really enjoyed. Something else that I really loved about this collection is that it is a very American feeling collection. George Saunders writes a lot about American issues, American families, American people, American ideals. Um, and I am not an American. I am Mexican. I live in Mexico. I always have. However, I feel that even though this book is a lot about America, it isn't really just about America. And I think that this book spoke to me as much as it could speak to an American or as much as it could speak to someone else living anywhere. I think this book transcends just those issues, even though it is very much rooted on themes such as class and wealth and the American identity and some of the values that Western civilization has. I think this book just because of the way that it's written and the way that it approaches these issues can be enjoyed by anyone and um, uh, can give us reflection of who we are regardless of our gender, ethnicity, religion. It just talks about people. Something else that George Saunders is a master of, in my opinion, is combining the happy and the sad, the comedic and the tragic, the satire, and just the very realistic punch in the gut uh, showing of reality of how the mind works. And yeah, it's a very difficult sensation to describe for me because I just felt like every time I read a short story, you just had to let go and go with it. If you sort of stopped, I think you could get lost. I think you just have to start and go and roll with the punches, and you will get it. Now, something that this collection has, and that I think a lot of people would not enjoy, or at least would not enjoy at first, and something that could throw a lot of readers off, is that George Saunders has a very particular way of writing very weird situations, and he never really describes anything that's happening. He just throws you in there in the middle of something. He doesn't tell you what's happening. You just have to figure it out on your own. So that's a problem that I had with the first story in particular, but with some of the other ones as well, is you're just thrown in there in the middle of the action, and you're just expected to fight for your life, to survive, and to understand what's going on. But I think that's part of the challenge, and I personally loved it. So my general opinion of this collection is I absolutely loved it. I effing loved it. I read every story in one sitting. It took me about 4 days to read the entire collection. It was so enjoyable. I found some pieces in here more challenging than others, but I also found some of them more rewarding than others. However, all of the stories in the collection, which, by the way, this collection has, I think, 10 stories, 10 or 11 stories, I think all of them had something. All of them had something that gripped me and something that I loved and surprised me and disgusted me. Now, I do believe that there's a couple stories here that maybe stand out a little bit more. At least they stood out to me, and I think that's something that happens with every collection that's out there. There's a story in here called The Semplica Girl Diaries, which I think is the longest one, and it's a story that George Saunders wrote over 15 years or something along those lines. It took him an incredible amount of time to do all his editing process to really get the story to a point where he was really happy with it, and that he felt that the story was really expressing itself. But having said that, this collection was just astounding from beginning to end. And something that I did is I used the channel Stripped Coverlet to help me analyze these videos and to think more critically about each story. So what I would do is I would read the stories during the day, and then at night, after I'd processed and thought the stories over and discussed them with myself, I would sit in front of my TV and I would watch Stripped Coverlet talk about the stories that I had read that day. And their reviews, their very insightful reviews, really helped me enrich my experience. I think my experience was already excellent, but having them sort of wa- sort of give me their pointers and to hear their commentary on the stories just opened up a new door for me. So I really thank you guys, Adrian and Dalton over at Strip Coverlet, because you made this experience even better than it already was. So yeah, that was my review of 10th of December. I know I didn't really say anything about the plot, but I don't want to spoil anything. I hope you give George Saunders a chance, particularly if you enjoy the kind of the kind of authors that I just told you about, like Kelly Link, Karen Russell. Um, I also read Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk earlier this year, and even though there's a big difference with George Saunders, I think there's some similarity here. So yeah, right now I'm just very, very hyper and very excited on reading more short stories. I think um, that's gonna be my biggest resolution for 2017. I want to read more short story collections, whether it be from one author or an anthology with different authors. So if you guys have any recommendations for either an author who writes short stories, or a good short story collection, or a good anthology with different authors and different stories in them, please let me know, because I'm looking forward to reading more. Like I said, I think this is probably my favorite format. The short story, when done well, can move me like nothing else. So that was my review. 10th of December, amazing.